Colorism and the brown paper bag test. Not all discrimination came from outside the house. Some of it was measured at the door. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Let's talk about colorism, not racism, colorism, the hierarchy that happened inside the Black community, the silent ranking system, the shade chart nobody printed but everybody knew. And we cannot tell the full story of Black history without telling this part, because truth does not weaken us, it clarifies us. Colorism is the practice of favoring lighter skin over darker skin within the same racial group. It did not start in our communities, it was engineered during slavery. On plantations, lighter skinned enslaved people, often the children of slave owners, were more likely to be assigned domestic labor inside the house. Darker skinned enslaved people were overwhelmingly forced into field labor. That division created something dangerous, a proximity to whiteness hierarchy. And when slavery ended, the hierarchy didn't, it adapted. The brown paper bag test. There were social clubs, church groups, sororities, fraternities, even some historically Black institutions where access was informally and sometimes formally tied to skin tone. If your complexion was lighter than a brown paper bag, you were admitted. If you were darker, you were excluded. Let that sit. There are documented accounts of this practice in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly within elite Black social circles striving for status in a segregated America. Why? Because in a society structured by white supremacy, lighter skin often meant greater access, perceived safety, economic opportunity, and social mobility. Not because lighter was better, but because proximity to whiteness was rewarded, and systems reward what they design. Colorism shaped marriage patterns, employment opportunities, media representation, school discipline outcomes, even sentencing disparities in criminal justice research. Modern studies have shown that lighter skinned Black individuals, on average, have historically experienced higher income levels and lower incarceration rates compared to darker skinned peers. That is not a moral judgment, that is data, and data tells stories. But here's what we need to be careful about. Colorism is not a competition of suffering, it is a system that conditioned us to internalize the gaze that oppressed us, a system that taught generations of Black children to associate beauty, intelligence, and gentleness with lighter skin, and to associate aggression, hypervisibility, or threat with darker skin. That conditioning didn't come from nowhere. It came from policy, from media, from advertising, from housing, from education, from who was allowed to be visible. Think about early Hollywood. Think about casting choices. Think about who was allowed to be the romantic lead. Think about school picture day comments. Think about good hair versus bad hair. None of that language appeared by accident. It was absorbed, repeated, and normalized. But here's the shift: the brown paper bag test does not define us, it reveals what we survived. We survived forced hierarchy, we survived manufactured division, we survived systems designed to fracture solidarity, and we are still here. Darker skin is not a liability. Lighter skin is not a betrayal. We are not enemies of each other. We are descendants of people who endured design, and design can be dismantled. Understanding colorism does not divide us, it gives us language, it gives parents tools, it gives educators context, it gives communities clarity. Because if we don't name it, it quietly reproduces itself. And Black history is not just about triumph, it is about truth, the full truth, even when it is layered, even when it is complicated, even when it requires us to examine internal systems alongside external ones. Colorism was engineered. The brown paper bag test was real, but our worth has never been measured by shade, and it will never be again.